Alright, so we're going to do a video here on scenario play, okay? And the first thing I'll tell you, if you're a player, maybe just got into paintball, and you really like tournament paintball, X-ball, airball, whatever you want to call it, and you're like, ew, I don't want to play woods ball, okay, scenario's lame. You really are missing out on a genuinely fun genre of paintball, okay? To compare, I play tournaments, I also play scenario. Here's the deal. To play a PSP cost me maybe $1,000, and I might be on the field for 15 total minutes if you count, an X-ball game maybe lasts a minute, maybe slightly longer, okay? You play a scenario game, 2-day game, entries like $60, maybe you add another $150 for paint, $200 as opposed to $1,000 to play at a PSP. And, you're talking about being able, the amount of time that you're going to be on the field is going to be in hours, not in minutes, in hours. So, if you're, a diehard tournament player or whatever it is, and you've really kind of shunned away from playing a scenario game, you really are missing out on something that is an absolute blast. So for people that have never played a scenario game or are kind of interested in how they work, the first thing I'll tell you is that you don't win scenario games by shooting out the other players. Okay, and that's going to shock a lot of people that have never played one, but you actually don't get points for shooting out the other players. So how do you get the points? The points is you get them by running missions and by getting objectives done and stuff like that, accomplishing objectives, stuff like that. That's how you actually win a scenario game. And I'm going to talk about. I'm going to go into a little bit more detail on that. But the first thing I want to definitely set your mind if you've never played a scenario game is that you could shoot out 5,000 people and still not even get a single point in a scenario game, okay? I mean, shooting out people is fun, and you're going to do a lot of it in a scenario game. But it's actually not how you win a scenario game. In a woods ball game, yes, not a scenario game. The first thing I'm going to talk about is there's 3 different types of scenario games. They all get kind of clumped up together. The first thing is what most people consider a big game. Now, these may get considered scenario games, but a big game. A big game is usually the missions are going to be dumbed down dramatically. Okay, most of the stuff is going to be very basic. Ground acquisition, ground holding, territory holding type missions. Okay, castle conquest, great example of a big game. The objective is you got a wall, you got attackers, you got defenders, and that's it. So, that's what would be a great example of a big game. Very simple, nothing crazy going on in the background. If you're an attacker, you know what you've got to do. Get into the wall. If you're a defender, you've got to prevent them from getting to the wall. And there you go. That's a great example of a big game. Living Legends is another example of a big game. Their objectives are very, very dumbed down, very simple for people to understand, okay? Hold this area for 15 minutes. Grab a prop from here and bring it back. Nothing really too crazy, too extravagant, too confusing, okay? Those are 2 good examples of a big game. Big games are generally ones where the objectives to win the game are very, very simple and everybody kind of knows them when you get there. Probably the next level, this is more of the middle level, is more of what I like to call more of the entry-level scenario games. This is mostly what people are producing nowadays. These are what paintball players tend to prefer nowadays. The missions aren't overly complicated, and the missions are very, very simple and easy to understand. And it's nothing really too crazy or anything like that. So, what are on a mid-level scenario game? What are some common ones? It could be something maybe you need to get somebody who's got a demolition card, and we'll go over some of the roles here in a minute. Get somebody with a demolition card, needs to come over here and throw a satchel charge into this area and blow it up. It can be also, you need to figure out where this particular prop is, but you also need to get a key, which is located at this prop over here, and bring it back over here to get it unlocked to bring it back. So like a 2-step type mission, but nothing really too crazy. The hardest level, if you want to call it, scenario games, you don't really see these anymore, are the ones where the storyline is extremely complex. Multiple factions out there. You can have 3 to 4 different teams operating out there at any given time. You may have spies, you may have middlemen, you may have, all sorts of little factions and stuff like that. Like you may have to go out on the field and find trinkets to get money. You may have to take those trinkets to a central base to get the cash. From the central base, you may have to meet up with a some sort of like a KGB agent or a CIA informant or something like that to get the key to get over to their base to get to get the thing unlocked, and then you got to bring it back. I mean, it could be as crazy as you could ever possibly imagine. It could almost get into almost like a Mission Impossible movie. So those are, you don't really see those type of scenario games anymore. It just, for the most part, they just become extremely confusing to the average paintball player, and a lot of people are not producing those type of games anymore. So I've played some of those games before, and if you really play a lot from the same producer, you can really start to understand what is going on and how that producer likes to, stage the scenario game. But for the most part, most people don't particularly like those type of scenario games. A little bit of complexity, yes, but these really, really crazy missions where it's not a 2-step thing like get a key from here and bring it to here. It's like an 8-step thing. I mean, that kind of stuff takes a lot of experience, which a lot of paintball players don't have. You've got to really understand how that scenario producer likes those missions to be accomplished, and it could take you a half a dozen scenario games before you even understand how to even accomplish a mission like that from that same producer. So those are the 3 different levels. You got big game, entry-level scenario game, super complex scenario game. They haven't produced, I mean, most 5 to 10 years ago they were producing a lot of those. I mean, I played some of those type of scenario games at Wayne's World, over here in Ocala, but you don't really particularly see those type of scenario games. Most of the time they're going to be more entry-level scenario to big game format, somewhere around there. Another thing you got to understand about scenario games are about 50% competition and about 50% entertainment, okay? Most of the people that are going to the scenario games are there to have a really good time. Sportsmanship is really high. You're not playing the PSP, okay? The emotions are generally, people get heated out there on the field, but for the most part, they're shaking hands right afterwards. They're not tackling each other and stuff like that. So, you really got to go into the mindset that scenario games or even big games are about 50% competition and 50% entertainment. You play your hardest. If you win, hey, cool. If you lose, hey, cool. So that's really the mentality. You got a lot of people are going out there just to have a really good time, and they are a lot of fun. Let's talk about, some of the common things that you see at scenario games and stuff like that. It's not uncommon to see tanks out there, okay? It could be a golf cart that's going to be converted into a tank. They put plywood shields up around, nets around, they shoot out of the nets and stuff like that. You see people with rocket launchers. There's the Nerf, they're like the t-shirt cannons. They put Nerf rockets in there. They're used to take out structures. Usually if you shoot the wall, everybody within 5 feet behind that wall is out. Same thing with the tank. If you shoot the tank's got to turn around and go back. Usually they put up a white flag. Common things, out there that you see, like helicopters, a lot of times it'll be a stick with some sort of a gem on top of it and a long cord attached to it. All the players can hang on to, you got the pilot, which is hanging on to the stick. The 4 or 5 players that are behind him hanging on to the rope. When the pilot throws the stick down, read your rules. If the pilot throws the stick down, then everybody's a live player. You see those kind of floating around. Sometimes you'll see role players out there, so you want to definitely read the rules to make sure, is a role player a live player or are they not? You don't want to shoot, if you're going to like a Star Wars game, you don't want to shoot someone that's dressed up like C-3PO if they're, or something like that, put all this time into this really nice costume. You're not supposed to shoot that guy, and then you go and you light him up and you feel like a dumbass because you didn't read the rules. So, the scenario games have got all sorts of things, crazy things out there that are fun to get into and really have a good time. What are some of the tips for, having a really good time at a scenario game? First thing I would tell you is to read the rules. This is not woods ball, okay? This is not just a basic woods ball game. This is meant to be a lot more entertaining, a lot more fun than just a basic woods ball game, and you really need to read the rules on how the game's going to play out. And the little things that go on and stuff like that. What does this role player do? What does that role player do? And you really need to get a good handle on what how the game is actually written, because it's, like I said, it's not woods ball. It's not the PSP. It's not X ball. And there's a lot of rules that you need to understand. Like, what are the insertion times? Okay, sometimes it's open insertion. So you come back, You touch your base, and you're a live player again. Okay, so you wipe off your hits, touch your base, you're a live player again. Sometimes, like in Living Legends, they may have 20 minutes on, 20 minutes off, or 10 minutes on, 10 minutes off. So there's windows, and you can, if you come in during that window, you can just touch your base and get back into the game. If the window is closed, you're gonna have to wait until the window's back open again, and then you can come back out there on the field. So reading the rules a couple times is going to definitely help you understand exactly what is going on and things like that. The next thing is if you start getting more and more comfortable in it, maybe you played one or two, the next thing I would definitely recommend you do is if you can get there early on Friday is to walk the field. Okay, this is very important. Get your map. They're always wrong. Get the map from the producer or from the website or wherever it is that they're posting up all their information at, and get the map and go out there and walk the field and see what lines up and what doesn't. Sometimes they may have something labeled one thing, you get there and it might be labeled something else, and you find out it was labeled something else from the scenario game 2 weeks ago. So your waypoint may say this bunker is 18, but it may have 27 stapled on there, and you may just have to get clarification. Okay, well, which is it? Oh, okay, well, the 27 was from a previous map on a previous game and doesn't pertain to this one. So walking the field can be huge. And sometimes scenario producers will also put props and trinkets and things in areas where people don't play. So, they may not commonly play. So in the corners of the field, you may want to go walk around over there too and see what exactly is going on over there before the game starts. You may see things in there that maybe there's nothing in there, and all of a sudden the next day you walk by and you see a prop in there. Well, that may be important for you to tell your general, especially on a mission where the prop could be located anywhere. Not all the time do they tell you exactly where a prop is located. They could say, this is what it looks like, it's anywhere on the field. So walking the field can be huge. The next thing is like I said at the beginning of the video, you don't get points for shooting out your opponents. You get points for running and accomplishing missions. So always check in at your base to see where you are needed. Maybe there was a mission team sent out to a particular area. You may want to go and help them out. Maybe they need help over here. Maybe they're about to run a mission and you want to get involved in that and help with that, because that's what's actually going to help your team win. If you just go out there and just shoot people, well, yeah, that's a lot of fun, but it's not going to help you get any points for your team. So definitely recommend, if you're going to play scenario, immerse yourself in the scenario game and help your team win by getting involved. Volunteer for things. This is one of the hardest things to get as a general, is to get people to volunteer for roles and stuff like that. That's what makes it fun. So always check in at the base, whether it's the general that's giving out the commands or the XO or one of his helpers or something like that. Come in and say, what do you guys need help with? Do you need any volunteers? Do you need any medics? Do you need any, anything? Do you need somebody to go out on a helicopter patrol or something like that, where you walk around with the stick and the yarn? So, you want to ask that. The next thing too is I definitely said 50% competition, 50%, 50% entertainment. You're out there to have fun. So have fun when you're out there. I have a blast at all of them that I play. They really are just genuinely fun events to play. Whether I'm getting stomped or I'm stomping the other team, they are a genuinely fun thing to do. Another thing I would recommend is, because it's a lot of playing, like I said, you may be out there for hours and hours and hours of playing time. Please be aware of your surroundings and please look out for other players. If you see somebody that just looks like they're seeing stars, or they're just acting erratically, or just they look like they're in a daze, stop what you're doing and go over and help that player. Okay, it's not uncommon for people to get start getting the early stages of heat stroke if it's a really hot day out. Sometimes people just get extremely winded. Sometimes people might have asthma. Maybe they've got diabetes. They've got a low blood sugar. If you see somebody who's acting erratically, maybe they got their hands on their knees and they're huffing, they're puffing. Or if you see somebody that looks like they need help, regardless of what team, go over and ask them if they need help. So, I've helped out tons of players out there on the field, especially towards the end of the day, that just got in over their head, got themselves in trouble, and they just need help off. I've carried off ammo, harnesses. I've carried off vests and guns and stuff like that, just to try to lighten the player's load, to get them off the field and get them help. It's something that you really need to make aware. Don't just pass somebody because you're so engulfed in the game that that person will be okay. They may not be. you don't know what's going on. They may be gasping for air. They may have a super low blood sugar. They may be they may be getting the early stages of heat stroke. So I definitely recommend be aware of your surroundings and when you're out there, and just keep looking around to see if anybody needs help. I think that's about it. In terms of scenario, but I definitely recommend, if you've never played one, go and play one. They really are a lot of fun. The price is very reasonable. Let's say, $60 for entry, and then, maybe you got to pay $10 for an air card, and then, maybe cases of paint are like $50. Maybe you'll shoot 3 in the weekend if you're really shooting a lot of paint. That's a bargain for as much paintball as you're actually going to play. So, you're going to be absolutely exhausted after the 2 days, and I think you're going to really have a fun time with it. But, even the most die-hard tournament player, I think that going out there and playing some scenario ball is good for you. You're really seeing a different element of paintball, something that may spark your interest a little bit more in it, and it's an absolute blast. And don't think just because you play airball that you're not good at scenario. Let me tell you what, I've seen some X-ball teams come over and play a scenario game. They work together and they actually murder the other team. So, you get 4 or 5 of your buddies on your X-ball team to go play a scenario game. Keep your jerseys on, say you're a scenario team. Go out there and start accomplishing missions. You guys will have an absolute blast. So, check around on Facebook, check around on TechTV. You'll see their scenario producers posting events all over the country. And that, I think that's about it. But if you haven't tried it, go try it. When you do go try it, I definitely recommend, read the rules is probably the first thing I'll tell you. Go walk the field if you can, and keep checking in at the base to see if they need any help. I think you'll just have an absolute blast when you're out there. Thanks for tuning in.